Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, this is Star Wars 7x7. Here we are at episode number 1662, and we're continuing to tie into The Force Awakens with Star Wars Resistance, and today we're talking about Dangerous Business, which is episode 13 from season 1 of Resistance, and our friend Kaz back there, yeah, he's back there somewhere, he gets involved with, well, you know what, I'll stop right there and tell you this is a spoiler-filled episode, and if you have not watched the episode and don't want it spoiled for you, then hey, save this episode for a later date. But if you are good with me telling you the scoop on it and giving you the additional analysis and putting pieces together for the larger Star Wars canon picture, then hey, let's just dive right in. So the brief story is that Flix and Orca from Acquisitions have to go away for the day. They're visiting Flix's mother, who is apparently half Gungan, which is a rather interesting thing to think about. And so Kaz has agreed to watch the shop for a day in exchange for some parts, which Tam is very, forgiving about because he didn't necessarily install everything correctly, but he made the effort to do that so that way she would be ready to fly the Fireball when she needed to. So that goes well, and there's a nice little relationship thing there. But the thrust of the episode has to deal with a character named Teraj Key, who claims he's from the Mining Guild. We don't necessarily know if he really is for sure. And who is after something called a phase connector. And it turns out that Flix and Orca do have one in stock, but they are supposed to be delivering it to a mining colony on a planet called Balashar, or what we assume is a planet. Could be a moon, or it could be a station. Who knows? There is a reference to a Balasar without the SH sound, just SAR, in the databank on StarWars.com, and it would be the planet that was home to people like Elan Sleaze Bagano. That would be the person who tried to sell death sticks to Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Cantina in Attack of the Clones. So if that's actually the same planet that they're tying back to, that's kind of funny in its way. Anyway, because of the fact that it's already committed, Kaz won't sell it. So instead, Teraj Key says, hey, well, I'll buy a bunch of other stuff and deliver it to my place. And so Kaz is like, well, you can just take it. And Teraj says, I want you to bring it. So Kaz brings it, and it's part of the plot to get Kaz out of the shop. So Teraj can break in and steal this phase connector. And everything goes to plan if it weren't for that meddling kid, Kaz, who realizes he's been had, gets out of the storage container he's been locked in, and ultimately tracks the phase connector being loaded onto a cargo ship that is being operated by the First Order. There are First Order stormtroopers on this thing. And so Kaz, with the help of Bitey, the little Gorg that lives in the shop with Flix and Orca, manages to take the ship down. Thankfully, there's one wire that will disrupt the entire power supply, and it doesn't get any better when they start shooting at the Gorg while it's biting the thing. And thankfully, the Gorg does not get too electrocuted because it survives the whole endeavor. But ultimately, the ship goes down, including with that phase connector, and Teraj Key has to report back and say, didn't get it, and he's reporting back to Commander Pyre. Dun, dun, dun. So he says, Phasma's not going to be happy about this, and so he's like, and flying away in escape pods with First Order stormtroopers following in escape pods, whereas Kaz was able to get in an escape pod and fly away back to the Colossus. But apparently, nobody's going to care about this giant cargo ship that went down into the ocean. I mean, you would think that they would be monitoring things enough where they would be like, hey, a cargo ship just exploded and crashed in the ocean. We should be investigating this. But maybe that's something that's going to happen off screen in between episodes, or there'll be a reference to it perhaps in the next episode, which I believe is the Doza dilemma. And, maybe the First Order will say something like, see, pirates again, like you got to get the First Order in charge of the platform. But anyway, Kaz gets back, and unfortunately, the shop is a mess from the break-in and BB-8 trying to fight off Teraj Key, and BB-8 actually did a reasonably good job until, he got trapped under a bunch of stuff. Flix and Orca are happy about the fact that Kaz took down the cargo ship But they're like, well, you lost the thing, so you're going to have to work it off. So be that as it may. I know I was just hypothesizing about, there should be investigations about this cargo ship going down. But Kaz basically told Flix and Orca that he took the thing down. So, you would think there might be repercussions for that potentially. And is he going to say anything about the fact that there were First Order stormtroopers on this thing? I don't think so, because maybe that runs into the whole, oh gee, why did it matter that there were First Order stormtroopers on there? What are you really doing? You used to be part of the New Republic, right? And so maybe this exposes him somehow, and it's a sticky situation that he's gotten himself into, to say the least. Now, how does this all tie into The Force Awakens? Well, let's explain that here very briefly. But first, I do want to say, hey, thank you for subscribing to the show wherever you happen to be catching it. And if you don't, hopefully you will. And hopefully you'll think enough of my endeavor to bring you a daily dose of Star Wars joy that you will consider joining the community at patreon.com/SW7x7. Now, for the tie-in for The Force Awakens, well, this phase connector thing, which Tiraj Key says that if he's able to steal this thing and get it to the First Order, it's going to make him rich because it's very expensive to buy, it's rare, it's hard to obtain, and what it's actually used for is for cracking open asteroids and planetoids, according to Flix and Orca, and thus for heavy mining. So right now, Kaz is wondering, like, is this for Deadlanite or something else? And Deadlanite would be something that was referenced in an earlier episode of the show, which would be something that the First Order was mining to help get ammunition for its blasters and whatnot. But, what else could it be for? Well, the obvious answer is Starkiller Base. And that being said, where we are in the timeline right now, you would have to think that Starkiller Base was at a point where they didn't necessarily need any more of these phase connectors. How much more heavy mining did they necessarily need to do? We're a couple of months away from the debut of the Starkiller Base weapon, and so you would think that they had done all the heavy mining that they would have needed to install all the equipment into Starkiller Base, and now it's just a matter of just making sure that everything works, like that they've done all the hollowing out of stuff. But I don't know, maybe they had one breakdown and they didn't have another one in acquisitions, and they're like, oh, where are we going to find another one of these things? Or maybe they have a few different Starkiller bases lurking around in the unknown regions, which would be very Return of the Jedi-like. Like, oh, there's a second Death Star? There's more Starkiller bases? Yeah, I suppose it's possible. But I think it's probably more of a Deadlanite situation, or more of some other as yet unnamed weapon that the First Order is developing. After all, the First Order is producing Star Destroyers and Dreadnoughts and Guerrilla Walkers and all these other crazy armaments of war, and so, they're going to need phase connectors and whatnot to mine the raw materials for that stuff too, I would imagine. So, anyway, yeah, I think it's not necessarily going to be as simple as Starkiller Base. I think it ties into something else, but that's my theory. I would love to know what yours is, so chime in wherever you happen to catch the show that has a comment section on it, or at sw7x7.com, drop it there, and then we'll continue the conversation there. For now, though, that is going to do it for our Resistance briefing on episode number 13 of Season 1. That's Dangerous Business, and that's it for episode 1662 here as well. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always. And may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.